Welcome back to Real Estate with Mariah and Spence. Today we are going to be debunking 4 common myths when it comes to a down payment. So down payment myths that many home buyers believe. And at the very end, we also have a fantastic viewer question that we will be answering. So be sure to stay tuned for that as well.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
I don't
you
know.
didn't know.
Yeah,
he didn't know what we were going to be talking about today. So this is all kind of just
That's kind of how I roll.
thrown on him here. But
Yeah.
That's how we like it.
I like it. I like the spontaneousness
Yes.
because if you're like pre-planned everything, you have a script to go off of. What's the fun in that, you know? Like I love just sitting in a room, observing, and then giving my true, honest opinions. What I've been talking with a lot of sellers lately, let's just cut the bull, you know, especially when we talk about commissions. So, no, this is going to be a fun show because
it's a good phrase.
It is a reality, though, for a lot of clients out there of ours, but buyers, like, how much do I need down? I actually get messaged quite a bit, usually through social media, my Facebook page. People are saying, Spence, I'm a first-time home buyer. I know the market's really high right now. What's my down payment, look like? What do I have to usually come down with? And the answer to that is there's no real good answer until you speak with your lender, because I am the real estate agent. I do have a knowledge of generally what my clients are doing, and I can share past experiences with that. But ultimately, your lender is going to be the guy or gal that makes things happen for you and gives you the best loan option, because there's all types of different options out there, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that at some point today.
Right. Okay, so getting into it, the first lie that many people believe, down payment myth, is, well, this is just in general, that cash is king when buying a house. And so looking at it, I feel like every buyer not every, but a lot of buyers that are offering cash just think that just because they're offering cash, they can make a little bit lower offer and get away with it. And now there are some circumstances where cash is king. Like, obviously, if the home can't be financed, you have to have a cash buyer, and that is what it is. And so there's certain instances like that where cash is the most important, obviously. But with a regular, like any old residential sale, if we're looking at 2 different offers and we're working with the seller, they're not going to take, in most circumstances, from what I've seen, and you can say if you've seen differently, they're not going to take the offer that's all cash if there's one that's even just a little bit higher price, but it's not cash, because for the seller, they're getting paid the same amount at closing. It doesn't matter if you have a loan or not. They're getting paid the same thing. So that's what I've seen. I don't know if you agree.
No, that's pretty spot on. Like, for instance, last week, my seller was not competing, but they received 2 different offers. And without me telling them what offer to conclude with, they make their own decisions. I present it. I give them the pros, the cons. They ask for a professional opinion. What one's better to work with? And ultimately, we had a cash offer versus a loan. Well, they chose the loan, and here's why. They got a little more. They got like $4,000 out of it. And ultimately, the cash offer, what I did realize out of that one is the terms. Terms are usually always worse with a cash offer because people think cash is king.
Right.
And they think like they can ask for anything they want. I have cash and I'll close in 5 days. Well, ultimately, sellers don't want to close in 5 days. Some do, some don't, though. For the majority, they're not wanting to be out of their home any sooner. 30 days to move out of a home that's fully being lived in, not vacant. Now, that's a lot of to-dos. That's a lot of boxes to check. You got to get movers. You got to do boxes. You got to figure out where you're going. And that's a big part in this market. Where are you going? So there's some circumstances, though, as a vacant home.
Right.
Cash buyer is ideal.
It is for a vacant home. But even then, I mean, 2 weeks, close in 2 weeks, or wait another few weeks and close, if you're getting paid a little bit more, usually the sellers don't mind waiting a little bit longer to get paid more. But again, every circumstance is different. And there are times when cash is like, obviously, the most important. But
my recommendation, though, is if you are coming in with cash, it doesn't mean you're not going to get a home competing against a loan. I don't think that's the route we're heading.
Not at all.
But you do want to have your broker calling and checking in with the seller's agent saying, hey, what's your other offers? If you are competing with other offers, getting a multiple offer situation, you want to make sure you're competing with the best possible offer being presented to the seller.
Yes, so I agree.
Make sure your terms are right, because that's what I notice a lot when we review cash offers is they're just asking for absurd things, and when you're dealing with multiple offers, the seller's going to choose the best terms in reality, because what's best for them is going to finalize the sale and make them more money at the end of the day.
Right. Okay. So the next one is that the next myth is that you can take out a loan for a down payment. So there are down payment assistant programs, but those are not always easy to get. And there's nothing wrong with getting help when it comes to your down payment, but it has to be a gift. If the lender suspects money might be a loan repaying, like someone you're going to repay them and that's factored into your mortgage or pre-approval or whatever, you'll be qualified for less. So you have to price that it's a gift and have a letter actually from the person giving it to you swearing that they won't ask for the money back. So the myth that we're busting or whatever is that you can take out a loan for the down payment, but you can get help. Just it's got to be a gift.
Yeah, that's a tricky situation. And, I'm glad you're bringing that up, though, because if you really think about the home buying process and the loan process, it doesn't make sense for you to go take out a loan to put a down payment on just so you're paying off your mortgage. A double loan. And you're just doubling up on your loan.
Right.
Now I've seen people take home equity, and buy out of your home equity. In a sense, that's a loan, but it's a different type of loan status, because you're dealing with one lender, not two different people you're balancing and paying off one and then paying off another. So that's a good one though, because if you don't have cash, if you don't have assets to sell to gain cash, how do you get cash? You mentioned a gift, people gifting you money. Those are more common than you might think in real estate, whether you're getting a gift from aunt, uncle, business, who knows? The reality is it is a gift. Okay. So you're not looking to pay that back, with interest over time.
Right. Okay. The next lie is that you need to put 20% down. So I was just having a conversation the other day with a gal who she has a great job. She's been at the same job for quite a while. So that's great as far as, lenders like that. They like the stability when you've been at the same job for a long time. That looks really good when you're getting a loan. But her thing was, I don't think I could buy. I don't know how it could ever happen, because all my rent is so high that all of my payment is going, or the money I make is going, it's hard to save basically. Yeah. So it's hard to save that 20% down. So that's something that I think a lot of potential home buyers don't realize, is that you actually don't have to put 20% down. There's different, loan options out there where you could put much less than that down. And that might, if it's your first home and you have high rent and you're just trying to save, then that could be a great option for you, is to find a different loan. Yeah. Or even a USDA loan where you put $0 down. And I know it's not always that easy as just buying a home. Like, that sounds nice. Like, buy a home with $0 down. There's more that goes into it. But what I'm trying to say is there are options. So don't count yourself out just because you don't have that 20%. Yeah.
And like I was talking about in the beginning of the show, different types of clients and just first-time home buyers in general, they ask me the question, how much do I need down? The reality is there are multiple loan programs for you to choose out of. There's even conventional loans with zero down programs with some lending institutions that I've worked with. And those are fabulous loan programs. And there's even ways for you to get your closing costs paid for through the lending institution that are just doing promotions. So there's all types of tools that you as a home buyer need to shop for. It's called shopping for a reason. You ask around and you ask us too. We'll give you our best recommendation. But it is shopping for a purpose, though, to get your lowest interest rate and see if there's any perks with certain loan programs and companies. And that's going to keep you in a way to gain real estate. And not everybody comes in with 100% down at all. Right. You're usually going to be jumping. So you buy a first-time home, maybe 3.5% FHA. You sell that, and you're going to use that equity to then gain the 20% on your next purchase. Right. That's what a lot of home sellers and buyers do to get a higher amount down, is use the equity from their previous investment.
Right. That is something we see a lot. Okay, so the last myth we're going to bust is your down payment is the only money that you need to bring to the closing table. So, yes, that's not true. There is also closing costs that you need to take into account for. And then of course there's other little fees like, the home inspection, that's your responsibility. That's very minimal, but it's still something to be aware of and think about.
$500.
It is your responsibility as the buyer to pay for that. So that's something to be aware of. Obviously, closing costs are more than that. But yes, so if you have saved for your down payment, you also need to save for your closing costs. That is something that can, if absolutely needed, it's obviously preferable to, for the home buying process and something to get accepted quicker, it is preferable to not have to ask the seller to pay for your closing costs. But we've done that many, many, many times for buyers and have had them been able to get an offer accepted that way. So there are ways to negotiate it if needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So our question today is, what makes a home unsellable or just simply hard to sell? And what are some of the characteristics of some of the listings you guys have had in the past that were the hardest to sell? I know I have a couple that have come to mind.
Yeah, I got a couple too.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
What makes it the hardest, though? I don't really think it's the home itself, but like, what makes it hard to sell a certain home in particular for you?
If the seller isn't realistic about the home itself. Okay, here's what I mean. So I'll give a couple examples. There's one home that was in a really great location, great side of South Salem. Mm-hmm. It was a large custom home. It was gorgeous, and it was good, square footage and everything. But there were a few things about it that made this home, like the sellers wanted to look at other homes that were similar and price it the same or even just a little lower, but they really didn't take into account. There were a couple things about this home that were turning off almost all the buyers for it at the time. Keep in mind the market was different at this time, mm-hmm. but there was no yard for that big, beautiful, massive home. And it wasn't just a flag lot. It was like worse than a flag lot because there was no parking, like driving. It was a super narrow little to get to it. Like mm-hmm. it was rough.
So location.
Yes. And so the sellers just they needed to, just looking at the home, you'd think, oh my goodness, this should be priced like very high because it was beautiful and all these things, and they had built it and customized it and all this. But they needed to realize that because of those other factors, that really takes down like so much of the price, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that is an unfortunate yes. thing, but that's so true yes. though. Sellers, in a sense, always think their home is worth more than what we think it's valued at.
Yeah.
Which I get. I'm personally invested in my home I currently live in. I've done updates to mm-hmm. it. I've lived here for years. You don't understand all the money that I've spent into this home. And all the while, remember this, all the money you spend into a home, keep your receipts, keep the bills, because that is a tax write-off when you go and sell the home. You can write all that off at escrow. So that's a little quick tip for you.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with particular homes that are like super, super nice, but for whatever reason, they just have become out of place. Usually it's location, no parking, bad ingress, egress, and then some way or another, the functionality of the home is just messy, and it's hard to function, regularly because it's got a kirk to it, and
or
that's a turnoff.
Or if it's just super unfitting, like it's just this, we've definitely seen this before, where it's this like beautiful, like newer, awesome, great home, and then right around it there were homes that just aren't taken Absolutely. Care of. They're way older. Like it just doesn't fit. And that definitely hurts the value. Yeah. Another one that comes to mind is a home. I thought it was a very cool home. It was in West Salem mm-hmm. and it was a 0 lot line home. Do you remember that listing?
That thing was beautiful.
Oh my goodness. It was so cool.
I walked in, did an open house, and it was awesome.
It was like straight up and down, but it had just all these like funky quirks to it. It was very like contemporary style. It was super cool. But because it was so unique, and because it was a 0 lot line home, which means there's a shared wall, and a lot of people, just it's not quite what they're looking for. Yeah. It was a little bit harder to sell, and the sellers again were wanting to look at comps that were not zero lot line homes because it was a big, beautiful home. It just, yeah. So that's tough when, to you maybe as the seller, because I understand as a seller, maybe it's not a big deal at all to you. You don't even realize there's a shared wall because, I've lived in homes with shared wall. It wasn't even a thing. We didn't care at all. But to buyers that haven't, aren't looking for that, it's a much bigger deal.
Totally. One thing that sticks out in my mind when it comes to real estate transactions that kill deals, and sometimes the home's awesome, functionality is great, location's great. I've run into problems, really big problems when it comes to like the wood structures. So when you have cedar siding, cedar decking, that type of thing, and it just hasn't been well upkept and there's no paint on it, and then the dry rot sets in. I've had some really, really big challenges selling those properties because, wood, especially right now, lumber, it's super expensive. And then it's some of the most highest quality stuff you can buy for replacement of siding, that type of thing. And if dry rot's happening, well, the siding's a pretty big deal on homes. And I see that often when it's cedar sided homes. And that's been something a seller understands that issue, but yet they still continue to live in the home with no interrupted issues when it comes to functionality and way of life. But what sellers sometimes don't understand is a buyer, they're investing in this home. They're putting sometimes all they have down on it. They have no money to spend for repairs. And that's the whole point of a repair addendum from a buyer. It's to protect them, right? And I've seen so many deals be killed because sellers don't necessarily want to negotiate repairs that are necessary, I believe, because to me, that's simple upkeep.
Right.
That's just home over the years. That's an obligation as an owner. You need to maintain your home if you want particular prices, especially. And in this case, a lot of sellers just don't want to do it or put in the work, and they also just don't even want to do a price reduction because of the type of market we're in. So they'll say, we'll find another buyer.
Right.
And that costs time, money, and sometimes there are market changes, and then people start to wonder, hey, what's wrong with this home? And it's at fault of the seller in reality because they don't want to do any repairs when repairs are necessary, and that's just upkeep of the home over a period of time of living there.
Right. And I do want to add, with all of this being said, for buyers, I don't want to discourage anyone from purchasing a certain type of real estate. Like, for example, say there's a house and, you've been looking for a little bit and there's a house that's on a flag lot and it's not a big deal to you. Like, you don't care that it's on a flag lot, but everything else fits perfect. So purchase the home. Like, I'm not saying that it's not going to sell in the future, or, if there's a shared wall or whatever, the situation is right by a train track, busy road. Those are all certain things that, a lot of buyers don't want. Yeah. But if that's not a deal breaker for you, you could find a perfect home. It could be like a diamond in the rough that's perfect for you.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're not going to gain equity. That doesn't mean that at all. All I'm saying is, for sellers, just make sure you take into account that you can't necessarily compare, the home with the shared wall. It's not going to comp out for exactly the same home that's the same square footage, but doesn't have one. You need to be comparing it to other homes that also have shared walls that have recently sold. Same with like the flag lot situation. You need to be comparing it to other homes that are also in a flag lot, which is, not always easy to find. But
while we're on the topic of buyers as well, I do want to touch on, what type of opportunity we have right now representing buyers of ourselves. And we're in a cool market here because sellers are still getting money, how much money they want when their home's listed. But ultimately, buyers take advantage of the homes that are maybe sitting a little bit longer to negotiate with if those homes kind of fit your needs. And we just had a really cool success story with a set of our clients that are out of state. We're actually performing an inspection sometime this week for them. We got them under contract just last week on a home that it's gorgeous, got square footage, great side of town.
Great neighborhood.
It's got parking. It's not a flag lot or anything. And they simply did the right things. They trusted, and look at now, they're under contract. So there's lots of things to be doing when it comes to negotiations for buyers right now. And I want to encourage you guys, don't feel like it's the same market it was 2, 5, 8 months ago, because we are in a little transition period, especially here in the Mid-Willamette Valley, when we call the brokers and say, hey, what's going on? You know, like, why is there so many price reductions? Or after 12 days, why is it still on market?
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy. That's bogus. But in the end, I mean, it's a reality.
I know. Why is 12 days on market a red flag?
And it's a fault of the sellers, though, for becoming more impatient over, $5,000. Generally, you send them an offer $5,000 under or $5,000 in closings, and it's been sitting that long, they're probably going to take it rather than sitting and being a little bit more patient. But that's the seller side. The buyers, let's take advantage of that and try to negotiate best for you. Not every circumstance is like that. There are still multiple homes with multiple offers, and that is something to consider because every property is different, in particular in its own self. And people want homes still. It's still very competitive. We're still at a very low inventory rate. But right now, to be a buyer, I think is really exciting. And there's hearsay of a slight decrease in interest rates, which is fabulous, and our oil prices are going down. So the economy, I think, kind of makes some type of shift to stabilize some type of inflation that's been happening over the last few years.
All right. Well, we're going to end the show here. Thank you for tuning in. We come on here every single week and talk about real estate. So be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. Feel free to send us any real estate related questions and we will answer them in a future show. Our contact information is in the description below, and we will see you guys next time.